You ever notice how before something amazing happens in your life, things get harder, like it feels heavier, tougher, even confusing? But let me tell you, those moments aren't punishment, they're preparation. Because when God is about to hand you something big, He doesn't just drop it in your lap, He gives you signs, and if you know how to spot them, you won't miss what's coming. When resistance increases before the breakthrough, it's not a coincidence and it's not random. It's a signal that something bigger is aligning for you. Most people mistake resistance for rejection, as if life is saying no to them, when in reality, resistance is a test to see if you're truly ready for what you've been asking for. Think about it this way: if everything came easy, you wouldn't develop the strength to handle the weight of the blessing. The struggle is the preparation. The pushback you feel isn't designed to stop you, it's designed to shape you. God allows resistance because it forces you to grow into the kind of person who won't collapse under the pressure of what's coming. When things suddenly become harder than usual, it can feel unfair. You might notice that the same tasks you used to handle with ease suddenly feel like a mountain. That's not a sign that you're unqualified or that you've lost your edge. It's actually proof that you're moving into a higher level. Just like a video game gets more difficult with every level, life will increase the resistance because the next stage of your journey requires a new version of you. If you're encountering obstacles that seem out of nowhere, it's not a setback. It's confirmation that you're on the right path and that you're closer than you think. Resistance also has a way of exposing your commitment. Anyone can stay motivated when things are easy. Anyone can keep moving when the road is smooth. But when the storms hit, when the criticism comes, when the delays drag on longer than you expected, that's when you find out how serious you really are about your calling. God isn't punishing you with resistance, He's checking your foundation. He's asking, will you keep going even when it hurts? Will you keep trusting even when you don't understand? If you can endure resistance, you're proving that you can handle responsibility. Think about athletes who train with resistance bands or heavy weights. The added pressure is what builds muscle. Without the resistance, there's no growth. Life works the same way. When you face resistance, your patience grows, your resilience strengthens, your focus sharpens. You start to discover strengths you didn't even know you had. That's why many people look back after their breakthrough and say, I wouldn't trade the hard times, because those were the seasons that made me who I am today. The struggle wasn't wasted, it was preparation for the blessing. Another sign that resistance comes before the breakthrough is how distractions multiply. Suddenly, everything around you tries to pull your attention away from your purpose. People may criticize you, unexpected problems may pop up, or even your own doubts may get louder. That's because the closer you get to stepping into something great, the more opposition you'll face. It's like spiritual friction. The enemy doesn't waste energy fighting you when you're going nowhere. He fights you hardest when you're on the edge of transformation. That's why the pressure feels heavier right before the door opens. There's also an emotional resistance that shows up. You may feel tired, overwhelmed, or tempted to quit altogether. That's when you have to remind yourself that feelings aren't facts. Just because you feel worn out doesn't mean you're failing. It means you're human, and it means you're stretching. Growth isn't comfortable, and breakthrough rarely feels good in the moment. But if you can push through the resistance, if you can refuse to quit, you will see that what was once your biggest obstacle becomes the very reason you're strong enough to handle your blessing. Sometimes the resistance shows up in silence too. You might pray and not hear an answer, or work hard and not see results. That silence is resistance testing your faith. Do you believe in the promise even when you don't see progress? Do you trust the process even when the results are invisible? If you can keep walking in the dark, eventually you'll see the light, and when you do, you'll realize that every step you took in resistance brought you closer to the breakthrough you were made for. When old doors close so better ones can open, it rarely feels like a blessing in the moment. Most of the time it feels like rejection, like you've been left behind or like something you counted on slipped right through your hands. A job ends, a friendship fades, an opportunity doesn't work out, and immediately the mind goes to doubt and frustration. We think, why did this happen? What did I do wrong? But what we often don't see is that the closed door is not a punishment, it's protection. God knows what's ahead, and sometimes the very thing we wanted so badly would have held us back, delayed us, or even damaged us if we had forced it open. That's why some doors close suddenly and without explanation. They were never meant to lead us where we're supposed to go. A closed door can be one of the clearest signs that you're being redirected to something greater. Think about how much energy we spend trying to keep old doors open. We chase people who no longer value us. We cling to opportunities that no longer fit us. We hold on to routines that no longer grow us. Yet every time we do, we limit our own potential. Closed doors are a way of shaking us out of comfort zones and pushing us toward growth. They force us to release what we've outgrown so we can make space for what's aligned with our next level. If you never had a door close on you, you'd stay stuck in the same room forever, never realizing the bigger opportunities waiting just down the hallway. It's also important to understand that not all doors close with a bang. Some close quietly. Sometimes a person just stops calling, the energy shifts in a relationship, or a project that once excited you now feels heavy and lifeless. Those subtle shifts are doors closing too. It's God's way of showing you that what once served you is no longer meant to carry you forward. But here's the challenge. We often mistake those quiet closures as personal failures. We think, I must have messed this up. In reality, you didn't mess it up. You simply outgrew it. The door shut because you were meant to walk through a better one, not because you weren't enough for the old one. The pain of a closed door can also reveal how much faith we really have. When something ends, do we panic and try to force it back open, or do we trust that something greater is on the way? Closed doors teach surrender. They remind us that we don't have to control every detail of life. Some doors close not because you failed, but because God succeeded in moving you out of harm's way. What looks like rejection is often redirection. What feels like loss is often the setup for a bigger gain. The closed door you're mourning over may be the very thing that spared you from years of struggle. Another truth about closed doors is that they free up room in your life. You cannot receive with closed fists. If your hands are full of old relationships, outdated opportunities, and expired blessings, there's no space for new ones. Closed doors clear the clutter. They remove what no longer serves you so that when the right opportunity arrives, you have the capacity to grab hold of it fully. Imagine trying to step into a new season while dragging 10 old ones behind you. You'd be too weighed down to walk through the new door. Closed doors are an act of mercy because they lighten your load. There's also a timing element in all of this. Sometimes the door that closes isn't a forever no, it's just a not yet. That's hard to accept when you want it right now, but think about how often you've wanted something before you were ready to handle it. If the door had stayed open back then, it might have crushed you. Sometimes God closes doors to give you time to develop, to prepare, to build the character needed for the next opportunity. And then, when the timing is right, another door swings wide open, and you realize why the old one had to close first. Every closed door also builds resilience. It teaches you how to let go gracefully, how to adapt when plans change, and how to trust that endings are not the end of you. When you learn to see closed doors not as roadblocks but as signposts, you gain the ability to move forward with less fear. You stop begging for what's behind you and start expecting what's ahead of you. That's the mindset that allows you to recognize that the closing was never a loss. It was always an opening in disguise when unexpected challenges test your patience and faith. It often feels like the exact opposite of what should be happening when you're close to something big. You pray for opportunities, you work hard for growth, you do your best to stay consistent, and instead of life getting easier, it seems like everything suddenly gets harder. Bills pile up, people misunderstand you, your plans fall apart, and obstacles appear that you never saw coming. It can feel like you're being pushed backward right when you thought you were finally moving forward, but those unexpected challenges are not random. They are the very tools being used to shape you for the next level. Challenges expose how strong your patience really is. It's easy to stay calm and collected when everything goes your way, It's simple to be kind and hopeful when nothing is resisting you. But when your timeline stretches longer than you expected, when doors don't open as fast as you hoped, when you've done your part and nothing seems to move, that's when patience is tested. And patience isn't passive, it's not just waiting around. True patience is active trust, the kind that says, even though I don't see the result yet, I believe it's on the way. Unexpected challenges are like the weights in a gym. They create the resistance that builds endurance. Without them, you'd never develop the patience necessary to carry the blessing when it finally arrives. Faith works the same way. Faith is simple to declare but difficult to practice when you're staring at a situation that makes no sense. Challenges come to shake the foundation of what you say you believe. They ask you silently, do you trust only when life looks good, or do you trust even when you're in the dark? A faith isn't built in the sunshine, it's built in the storm. When you're facing difficulties that you never planned for, faith is the anchor that keeps you grounded. It tells you that even though everything around you feels unstable, what is meant for you cannot be taken from you. Unexpected challenges also have a way of clearing out illusions. Sometimes we think we know ourselves until life puts us under pressure. It's in the challenges that you discover your weaknesses and your hidden strengths. You may find yourself saying, I didn't know I could handle that much, or I didn't realize I needed to work on that part of me. The difficulties strip away the parts of you that aren't strong enough to survive the next level. They refine you, just like fire purifies gold. Without the test, you wouldn't be ready for the promotion. Another reason unexpected challenges appear before something big is because they separate the temporary from the permanent. They reveal who's truly with you and who was only around for convenience. When life is smooth, many people will walk beside you. But when the storms roll in, when patience is required, when faith is stretched, you'll notice some people fall away. That's not a loss, that's clarity. Challenges are God's way of removing those who can't go with you to the next chapter. It hurts at first, but in the end it's a blessing. Challenges also prepare you for responsibility. The bigger the blessing, the greater the responsibility that comes with it. If you're asking for something life-changing, you need the strength and maturity to carry it. Unexpected obstacles serve as training grounds. They test your ability to lead yourself under pressure before you're trusted to handle something bigger. If you can't stay patient and faithful in a small storm, how will you remain steady when the winds grow stronger with greater opportunities? Every problem you endure now is equipping you for the platform you'll stand on later. Even more, challenges change your perspective. They shift your focus from short-term frustration to long-term growth. When everything goes smoothly, we rarely stop to reflect, but when things break down, we're forced to pause, to rethink, to adapt. That new perspective is priceless because it allows you to approach future opportunities with wisdom instead of just excitement. It's the wisdom that says, I've been through enough to know this difficulty won't destroy me. That kind of confidence only comes from walking through trials you didn't plan for. Unexpected challenges are also signals that you are in motion. You don't face resistance when you're standing still. The very fact that challenges show up means you're pushing forward into new territory. The friction you feel is evidence that you're close to breaking through. The enemy doesn't fight what doesn't threaten him. The greater the resistance, the greater the indication that what you're moving toward matters. Challenges are confirmation that you're not wasting your effort. You're pressing towards something worth fighting for. When people drift away, making space for the right ones, it can feel like one of the most painful and confusing experiences in life. You think certain people will always be there, you build plans around them, you imagine your future with them still playing a role, and then suddenly the connection weakens or disappears altogether. It feels personal, like you weren't enough, like you did something wrong, or like you're being abandoned. But what often looks like rejection is actually redirection. People drift away not always because of something you've done, but because their part in your story has been completed. God knows who needs to walk with you into the next season and who doesn't. When someone leaves, it may be the very thing that creates room for someone better aligned with your purpose to enter. It's important to remember that not everyone who starts with you is meant to finish with you. Some relationships are seasonal, designed to teach you something, to help you grow in a certain stage, or to walk with you during a particular chapter. When that purpose is complete, the connection may naturally fade. Holding on to people who are no longer meant to go with you can keep you stuck, weighed down by relationships that don't serve your future. When God wants to elevate you, He often removes the people who would block that elevation. It feels like loss, but it's really preparation. There's also a hidden protection in people drifting away. Sometimes the very people you wanted to hold on to would have harmed your growth if they stayed. You may not see it at the moment, but their influence, their energy, or even their lack of support would have kept you from stepping fully into what you were created to do. That's why certain relationships end suddenly or painfully. It's God cutting off what you don't have the strength to release yourself. It may not make sense now, but later you realize that if they had stayed, they would have drained you, distracted you, or even derailed you. The space they left was not emptiness, it was freedom. When people leave, it also exposes your ability to stand on your own. Too often we tie our identity to who is around us. We rely on certain voices, certain validation, or certain company to feel secure. When those people drift away, it forces us to learn how to rely on God more than on people, to draw strength from within, rather than always depending on external support. That's where true confidence is born, because your worth no longer depends on who stays or who leaves. You start to realize that your value doesn't shrink when someone exits your life, and your destiny doesn't collapse because someone else chose to walk away. Another thing people drifting away reveals is the difference between attachments and alignments. Attachments are people we hold on to out of comfort, familiarity, or fear of being alone. Alignments are people who actually help push us toward our purpose, who challenge us to grow, who add value to our journey. When the wrong people drift away, it may hurt, but it's clearing space for the right alignments to take their place. And those right alignments don't just show up by accident. They come when there is room for them. If your life is already full of people who aren't truly for you, how can the ones who are meant for you step in? Sometimes God has to make the space by allowing others to step out. It's also true that growth naturally creates distance. As you evolve, your values change, your priorities shift, and your vision expands. People who are comfortable with the old version of you may not recognize or accept the new version. That's not a sign that you should shrink back. It's a sign that you're maturing. If your growth makes someone uncomfortable to the point where they drift away, let them go. The people who are meant for your life will celebrate your growth, not resent it. They'll rise with you, not resist you. Drifting relationships also teach you gratitude for the ones who remain. When people leave, it sharpens your awareness of who truly supports you, who genuinely wants to see you win, and who is willing to walk through the hard seasons with you. It's not about the quantity of people in your circle, it's about the quality. Losing some connections makes you appreciate the loyalty and authenticity of the ones who stay, and it helps you value the new relationships that will enter your life in alignment with where you're going. People drifting away is not the end of connection. It's the beginning of better connection. It's a process of pruning, removing what no longer fits so that new life can grow. Just like a gardener trims branches so the plant can thrive, God allows certain relationships to fall away so that stronger, healthier ones can take root. It may not feel good in the moment, but it is always for your good in the long run. When restlessness grows inside you, pushing you toward change, it can feel unsettling and confusing. You may look around at your life and realize nothing is necessarily wrong, but something deep inside you feels off. You can't sit still the way you used to. The routines that once brought comfort now feel heavy. The conversations that once entertained you now feel empty. You wake up with a sense that there's more, even if you can't fully describe what more means. That restlessness is not something to ignore. It's not a sign that you're broken or ungrateful. It's a signal that growth is calling you, that God is stirring something new within you, and that staying the same is no longer an option. Restlessness is often the first whisper of transition. It shows up before the visible opportunities arrive, nudging you to prepare for what's ahead. It's like an internal alarm clock that goes off before dawn, waking you up earlier than you planned. That discomfort is not meant to frustrate you, but to get your attention. If you felt completely satisfied where you are, you would never move. Restlessness creates the tension necessary for movement. It disrupts your comfort zone so you'll step into the unknown. Without it, you'd settle for less than what you're capable of. This feeling of restlessness can manifest in many ways. Sometimes it shows up as boredom, even when your life looks good on the outside. Sometimes it feels like dissatisfaction, even though you've achieved things you once prayed for. Other times it feels like frustration, like no matter how hard you try, something isn't clicking anymore. Those feelings are not failures, they are fuel. They are reminders that you weren't created to stay stagnant. They push you to dream bigger, to ask harder questions, to seek deeper meaning. One of the most important things to recognize about restlessness is that it often precedes breakthrough. Before God takes you to the next level, He allows a holy discontent to rise within you so you won't cling to the old level. If you stayed fully comfortable, you would resist change. Restlessness loosens your grip. It makes the thought of staying where you are more uncomfortable than the fear of stepping into the unknown. That's how transformation begins. You stop being afraid of what you might lose and start being more afraid of what you'll miss if you don't move forward. Restlessness also reveals alignment. It forces you to evaluate what in your life no longer fits. The job that drains you, the habits that limit you, the relationships that no longer inspire you. All of them get exposed when restlessness grows. Suddenly, what you used to tolerate becomes intolerable. What you used to excuse becomes unacceptable. It's not because those things changed, it's because you did. Your spirit knows there's something greater ahead, and the old patterns cannot carry you there. Restlessness makes it clear what needs to be left behind so you can step into what's next. At the same time, restlessness tests your trust. It pushes you to make decisions without having all the answers. That's uncomfortable because we want certainty, but restlessness rarely comes with a roadmap. It comes with a nudge, a stirring, an inner voice that says, there's more. Acting on that requires faith. It requires believing that the unease you feel is not random but purposeful. It requires moving even when you don't see the full picture. That's why many people resist restlessness. They want clarity before they take the first step. But the truth is, clarity often comes after you move, not before. Another gift of restlessness is that it fuels creativity and vision. When you're restless, your mind begins to imagine possibilities beyond your current reality. You start to ask questions like, what if I tried something new? What if I stepped out? What if I trusted myself enough to go after what's been tugging at my heart? That creative energy is not wasted. It's guiding you toward the next door. It's preparing you to embrace opportunities you wouldn't have noticed if you were content staying the same. Restlessness also stretches your capacity for courage. It's easy to stay where it's familiar, even if it's unfulfilling. But when the discomfort inside of you grows stronger than the fear in front of you, you begin to take risks. You start making changes that once felt impossible. You realize that the very thing you were afraid to lose was never enough to sustain you anyway. Restlessness builds the bravery you need to step into the unknown, because the pain of staying stuck outweighs the fear of moving forward. When God places restlessness in your spirit, it's not to torment you, it's to transform you. It's His way of letting you know that where you are is not where you're meant to stay. That stirring is the preparation for the blessing, the signal that bigger doors are opening, the push that gets you moving before you would have chosen to on your own. Restlessness is not an enemy. It's an invitation to growth, to purpose, and to the greater life that's waiting beyond your comfort zone when small blessings start showing up as previews of the bigger gift. It's easy to overlook them because they don't look like the massive breakthrough you've been waiting for. You pray for abundance, and instead of a flood, you get a drip. You dream about a door opening, and instead of the grand entrance, you see a window crack open just enough to let light in. These small blessings are not random. They are not leftovers or accidents. They are signals, reminders from God that He has not forgotten you. that He's still working behind the scenes, and that what you've been preparing for is on the way. They are like the early signs of dawn before the sun fully rises. The danger is that we often dismiss these small blessings because we're too focused on the bigger picture. We say things like, "This isn't what I asked for," or "This isn't enough." But the small blessing is not meant to be enough. It's meant to be a preview, a sample, a taste of what's coming. Just like a movie trailer gives you glimpses of the full story, these blessings are evidence that the greater gift is already in motion. If you ignore the previews, you miss the encouragement and the confirmation that your prayers are being answered step by step. Small blessings also serve as a test of gratitude. If you can't appreciate the small, how can you be trusted with the big? Gratitude is the key that unlocks more. When you celebrate the little wins, the unexpected opportunities, the answered prayers in small doses, you demonstrate that your heart is ready for more. On the other hand, if you complain about what looks too small, you close yourself off from the greater things that were meant to follow. Every small blessing is an invitation to practice thankfulness so that when the larger blessing arrives, you can receive it with the right perspective. Another purpose of small blessings is to build your faith. Big blessings require big faith, and faith isn't developed all at once. It's strengthened through consistent reminders that God is faithful in the little things. When you see small doors opening, small problems resolved, small provisions showing up just when you need them, it builds your confidence that the same God who handled the small will also handle the big. These previews remind you that if He can show up in the details, He can absolutely show up in the breakthroughs. Small blessings also help you develop stewardship. Sometimes what looks small is actually training ground. If you're faithful with a small amount of responsibility, you're being prepared for greater responsibility. If you're careful with small opportunities, you'll be equipped to handle bigger ones. The blessing may look minor, but the way you treat it determines whether you're ready for the bigger gift. When God gives you a small blessing, He's watching to see how you handle it. Do you honor it, manage it well, and treat it with care? Or do you dismiss it as not enough? How you handle the preview reveals how prepared you are for the feature presentation. These small blessings can also shift your perspective. They remind you to look for evidence of progress instead of only searching for perfection. Too often we measure success by the final result, forgetting that every big outcome is made up of small steps. The preview moments remind you that progress is happening even if it's not complete yet. You begin to notice that blessings don't always arrive in one dramatic moment. They accumulate, they stack, they build until suddenly you look back and realize you're standing in the very breakthrough you once prayed for. There's also encouragement in recognizing that small blessings are proof of alignment. When opportunities, resources, or people begin to show up unexpectedly, it's not coincidence, it's alignment. It's a sign that your steps are being ordered, that you're moving closer to the right place at the right time. Every little blessing is like a breadcrumb on the path leading you to the bigger promise. You may not see the whole map, but each small provision tells you you're walking in the right direction. Small blessings also train your heart to slow down and notice the goodness already around you. If you only celebrate the big wins, you'll spend most of your life waiting instead of living. But when you learn to find joy in the small victories, the small provisions, the quiet moments of grace, you start to live with a sense of abundance even before the big breakthrough arrives. That kind of mindset attracts even more blessings because you're not waiting to be happy. You're already walking in gratitude. When you understand that small blessings are previews, you stop treating them as interruptions and start treating them as confirmations. You see them as God's way of whispering, "I'm still here, I'm still moving, bigger things are on the way." And once you learn to value the previews, you won't just wait for the big blessing, you'll be ready to carry it when it comes because you trained your heart to recognize it in every form, both small and great.